What's happening, guys? In this video we review the final What I Expect You to Know in its entirety. Again, it doesn't seem like much, but the problems are kind of drawn out. So your first part's solving the equations. Now first off, you look at an equation, you see how many answers, and there would be 2 because we have x to the second. Okay. Now which method are you going to use? Now you have an x to the second, but you also got an x to the first. Okay, so whenever that's true, whenever you find another x that isn't to the second, you are going to have to use your set boxes method of solving. Okay, so first thing you do, you have to make sure you're set, and I see 0, so I am. Okay, now I need to count the terms by underlining 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 3 terms is the GCF in the table. So GCF and the T table. Now I'm not going to write, oh yeah, can you do me a favor real quick? Okay. Let's just drop where we're at on that one. Do me a favor real quick. I want you to go to number 4 and write fail. Okay, because I want that down. And I want you to go to number 9 and write fail. Okay, that's going to tell you something. Okay. But I did not write fail on number 1, okay, so I assume it will not fail. So GCF, again, negative, you check for the negative in the front, and then you see if X is on all your lines, and then you do the GCF out of the values 1, 3, and 10. Okay, so I won't need the negative. X, well, I got X second, X, and nothing, so. And then on the math, on the GCF calculator, you punch in the numbers 1, 3, 10. Get mine up. Okay, the only one, and it just gives me 1. Okay, so if all I can find is 1 without a negative or an X, I get rid of it. And I do the ABC from this point right here. So I take positive 1 and multiply it by negative 10, and that gives me negative 10. Okay, so I got a negative. That means I want to do it as a minus. And I'm trying to get to 5 or 3 positive. Okay. 1 and 10. 10 minus 1 is not 3. Now after 1 comes 2. So I divide the 10 by 2. I get 5. 5 minus 2 is 3. Okay. Alright, so I got positive 3. So you got positive 5. And then I have a negative 10, so the signs have to be opposite on the 2 factors. OPP means opposite. Okay, now that I found them, I make my parentheses. We're always going to make 4 of them. So my A up there is 1x to the second. Okay. So I go 1x minus 2, and then 1x plus 5. Now you GCF these, but when you punch 1 in, it's just going to be 1. Okay. So that'll stay 1x minus 2. And then 1 here, it's going to be 1 again on the GCF calculator, so it's 1x plus 5. Okay, so I put equals 0 after that, and I did not do anything here. If I do, I drag it down, but I didn't. Okay, so I have my factor 1 and my factor 2. So factor 1, I have 1x minus 2. That one could equal 0. And F2, I got 1x plus 5. That factor can equal 0. So I dot my x's and circle them. So I plus 2, 1 times x is going to equal 2. Dividing by 1 will give me 2. Okay, so 2 divided by 1 is 2. You don't even need to divide by 1. And then here I minus 5. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. And since the dot number is a 1, I don't really need to divide. I have my answer. Okay, so those are your 2 solutions. Okay, number 2. How many answers do we have on this problem? Well, there'd be 2. So what method am I going to be picking? Okay, I'll do the method right here instead of right above it. Well, I know I got the x to the second, but I have this other x here that isn't to the second, it's to the first. So again, that's set boxes, just like the last problem. Okay, so we're set. The zero's there. Okay, now I count how many terms I'm going to be factoring. 3. Okay, so GCF, and then the big table. And it doesn't say fail, so I'm assuming that A times C is the way to go. Okay, so the negative don't need because that 2 in the front's positive. X, I have X second, X1, but I don't have X here. Okay. Then I see what my GCF calculator says about 2, 3, and 20. And I get 1. Okay, so the GCF's 1. We ain't doing it. If it's 1 with a negative, I do it. If it's 1 with an X, I do it. But when it's 1, no. So I don't see the word fail, so I'm assuming the A times C method is the way to go. So I take positive 2 times negative 20, and I get negative 40. Again, I got a negative, so that makes this a minus problem. And I'm minusing trying to get to 3 positive. Okay. Well, 1 and 40 can't do it. After 1 comes 2. 2 and 20, nope, 2 and 20 won't be 3. Now I divide by 3, decimal. Okay, 4 is 10, so I got 10 minus 4 is 6. Remember, I'm trying to get this 3 out of this. 5 and 8. Okay, 8 minus 5 is 3, so it's those 2. So 3 positive means 8 positive. And I got a negative up there, so the signs have to be the opposite, okay? So plus 5 minus 3. Okay, now my A is 2x to the second, okay? So when I make my parentheses, instead of 1x minus 5, 1x plus 8, I have to go 2x minus 5 and 2x plus 8. That's minus 5. Sorry about that. That's a minus 5. And then 2x plus 8. Okay, now I'm going to need to utilize my GCF calculator. So 2 and 5. Okay, that's a 1 GCF. So that'll stay the same, 2x minus 5. Okay, 2 and 8. That's a 2 GCF. So that's going to go down to 1x plus 4, okay? So I put equals 0, and I do not have a GCF that I did. I didn't do anything there, so that's my F1, that's my F2. Okay, and then I solve. So 2 times x minus 5 could equal 0, or 1 times x plus 4 could equal 0. So I dot my variables and do my math. So I add 5, 0 plus 5 is 5. And I divide by 2. Okay, so 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. So that's your first answer, 2.5 or 2.5. And then here I'm going to minus 4. So it's negative 4. And since I have a multiplier of 1, I really don't need to divide. I mean, you can, but it's just going to be the same thing. Okay, number 3. Negative 12x to the second power minus 3x equals 0. So again, how many answers do we have? There's going to be just 2. Now, what's my method going to be? Well, I have the x to the second, and I've also got this x here that's to the first. You don't have to put the first power there as long as you recognize g. I have another x that isn't to the second. That means we're going to do set boxes. Okay, and again, you're set. Okay, so that's a good deal. So how many terms do you have this time you need to factor? This time there are 2, so GCF and then difference of perfect squares. So GCF And then I'm going to see if I have a difference of perfect squares. Okay, so the GCF, remember, is the first number negative. Yes, it is, okay? So, again, you always want to put negative, x, and then GCF. So we need the negative because our very first number is negative. So I put a negative here, then under the line so I remember it. Okay, x. Do you have x on both of these? Yeah, you do. So you take the x to the smaller power for your GCF. And I put it here, and then here, and then here. Now I got to find an actual value for the GCF, okay, 12 and 3. So we need the negative and the x here because x appears on both of them. Okay, now let's talk about 12 and 3, what the greatest common factor would be, and it's 3. Okay, so it's negative 3x to the first. Okay, so again, I put a parentheses around negative 3x to the first, then I go divide. Now remember how I do this. I divide negative 12 by negative 3, and that's 4. And then for the x's, I take 2 minus 1, so that's 1. Then over here, I take negative 3 times negative 3, and that's 1. Now it's positive 1, so I write plus 1. And then the x's here are to the same power, so they cancel out. Okay. Now, dots. Now, remember what a dots is. Do you even have, and you're always looking at the parentheses on the far right, do you even have the x to the second? That x has to be to the second, and it's not. It's to the first, so I don't need to worry about anything else. I don't need to worry about the second number being negative, which it's not. I don't have to worry about the numbers being perfect, okay? If I see that that x is to the first, it's not a dots. So we cross it out. I put the equals 0, so I have F1, F2. Okay, now get rid of your first powers. Okay, you don't want to worry about those. So I have negative 3x, that can equal 0. Or I have 4x plus 1, that could equal 0. So I dot my x's and circle them. Here I go straight to divide. I don't need to add or subtract. And 0 divided by any number is 0. And then over here I need to minus 1. So 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Now we do have a 4 there, so we're going to need to divide both sides of that equation by 4. So negative 1 divided by 4 is negative 0.25. Okay. Okay, number 4, I have 5x to the second minus 4x equals 2. Now there's two answers because you got x second. You've also got an x here that would be to the first. Okay, so again, when you got an x second and x first, you have to set in boxes because you can't put x's together if they have different powers. Okay, now the problem is here you're not set. Okay, so because I have a 2 there, I need a 0, so I need to set this myself. Now, x second, you just got a 5, that's where you want it. X, you got a negative 4, that's where you want it. Now, for non-x's, you have a 2, but you don't want to just put 2, because remember, you need a 0 to go where that 2's at. Now, if there's nowhere to put it, you just put negative 2 after it, okay? Because it's like you're just putting a minus 2 somewhere because it has nowhere to go, so it just goes after everything. Okay, now you're set, and now you see clear as day the 3 terms, GCF table. But there's a fail, so... Okay, negative x GCF. Negative is not needed because the 5's positive. X here, but not here. Okay, so I'm going to GCF 5, 4, and 2. And I just got a 1 GCF. So remember, when it's 1 without a negative or an x, we don't do that. Okay, now I'm going to go ABC, but I'm not going to do the A times the C because you see the fail. That means I'll never be able to find it on my table. Okay, So A, B, and C, and then I use my quadratic formula, the song. Okay, so A is 5, B is -4, and C is -2. Then opposite of B, plus or minus the square root. B, remember 2 parentheses here, and B is to the second, minus 4A and C, okay? Over 2A, over 2A. So the opposite of -4 would be a +4. You can put a positive, but it's really just 4. And then here I have B itself, so that's going to be -4, okay? Then 4A is 5. C is -2. Okay, and then the A itself is just 5. Okay, so I know I got the 4. I got the plus or minus. I got to take 2 times 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Now I got to get rid of this big square root. So I go second. Remember how to do that. You hit the second key and then the x to the second power key. And then you need one parentheses comes up on its own, and you need a second one. So you have -4 to the second. Remember, second is just tapping that same button, but without doing the second with it. Minus, and then I got 4, 5, -2. I got 7.48, so that's what I'm going to put up there. And then I go from there. I take 4 plus 7.48 equals, and then divided by 10. That'd be 1.14. And then I take 4 minus 7.48 equals, and divide by 10. And I get -0.34. Okay, moving right along. Number 5 is a quick one. You have 2x to the second minus 20 equals 78. So how many answers? Well, there's 2. Now, how about my method this time? You know you got x second, but you don't have that x to the first in there that causes all the problems. So this will not be set boxes. This will be x squared equals x equals. Okay? So again, with that, I just write these out here. So then I dot my x to the second and just undo the operation. So we got a minus 20, so we're going to add 20. 78 plus 20 is 98, so put 98 down there. So 2 times x to the second equals 98. Now the multiplying number is a 2, so we have to divide by 2 now. And after I find out what 98 divided by 2 is, x to the second will equal whatever 98 divided by 2 is, which is 49. Now, just square root your 49. Just do it on a calculator. I mean, technically this is a perfect square. I mean, you can use your table, okay? But again, if I just find the square root of 49, it's 7, okay? So again, I could do positive or -7. Pretty simple. Okay, number 6, x to the power of 3 minus 2x to the second power minus 4x plus 8 equals 0. So we have 3 answers this time because we have x to the third, and I think you know what that usually means. Okay, the method, you have x third, x second, x first. So you got all these different x powers, so it's got to be set boxes. Okay, so you're set. Okay, and then the boxes is different because it's 4 terms. So you got to do your grouping and then your dots. Remember, the grouping's got to be a pretty big box. Okay, so just put, you don't even have to put the word grouping if you don't want, but you make parentheses plus parentheses. Then the same thing with a line outside. Okay. And then a large parentheses with a big line, and then I put a much smaller parentheses here because that's where my F1 goes, okay? And then from there, okay, make your dots box to the bottom right because it comes from that. That's where you're looking. And then a plus and a minus, Okay, so we got 1x to the power of 3 minus 2x to the second, and then I got negative 4x. I'm not going to put a first power, plus 8. Okay, so remember what we're trying to come up with here, the GCF, so you go negative x and then GCF. Now that is, 1 is not negative, but the 4 is, so I'll need a negative in the second one. Now for x, well, I have two x's here, and the last one's to the second, so I need x to the second. And I don't do x's here because the 8 is without x. Okay, now the GCF, 1 and 2 would just be 1. And then let's talk about 4 and 8, okay? Okay, I need to do a 4 in that. Okay, now whatever I have under the line here, we put that out here, x, 1x second, and negative 4. So then I divide. 1 divided by 1 is 1. 3 minus 2 is x to the first. And negative 2 divided by 1 is negative 2. Those are the same power, so they go bye-bye. And in here is the same thing. That's going to be positive 1. I'm still going to have x. And then 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. Now, look at what you have here. I'm going to use a red pencil. Look at what I have in each parentheses. It's the same exact thing. So I put that expression out here. Okay? And once that's out, we can cross it out, and I have 1x to the second minus 4. Okay, now I check that for a dots. Is the x second there? Yes, it is, right there. Okay, so xx is the second number negative. Yes, it is. Okay, are the numbers perfect squares? Well, let's look at that thing. Well, 1's a perfect square because that's 1 times 1. And 4 is a perfect square. That's 2 times 2. Okay. Okay. Then you're pretty much done, but you put the F1 in front of it. Okay. This just goes down here. And I now have the 3 factors I need to solve. F1, F2, F3. 2 of the factors are exactly the same. That's okay. So 1x minus 2 equals 0. 1x plus 2 equals 0. 1x minus 2 equals 0. And then you solve. Okay. 2 of the answers are going to be identical, and that's my fault. Okay. So I get 2. I don't need to divide if the multiplier is a 1. So 2. Any other number you have to divide. Okay, again, you get negative 2. You don't need to divide if the multiplier is a 1. So negative 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. You don't need to divide if the multiplying number is a 1. Okay, so those are your 3 solutions. Okay, now number 7 and 8 are different because they have parentheses, so you kind of have a guideline here. Now, you're either blocked or you're not. If you have a power after the parentheses, you're blocked. Okay. Here I don't have that power, so I'm not blocked. Okay. So I would do rainbows on that one, but not on this one. So block, you rewrite the equation using h to the second. Okay. So you got h to the second, and you got a 4 in front. After your second power, you have the equals 24. You don't have any plus or minus. And now I write h to the second equals, and then h equals, and then I make my table. Okay, see, I'm ready to roll now. Okay, if I was on, and in the table I put x minus 4. Put a 1 in front of it. Okay, now I'm ready. Okay, I can dot and circle. I don't have to add or subtract, but my multiplying number is not a 1, so I am going to need to divide. So 24 divided by 4 is 6, and then I find the square root of 6 on a calculator. It's not 3. Square root of 9 is 3, not 6. So second, get the square root up. 2.44. Okay, then I just translate over here. I go 2.44 and negative 2.44. Okay, So I dot my x. It's just a 1, so all I really need to do is add the 4. So 2.44, it's like 2 plus 4, which is 6. That's 6.44. You can just delete the 1 then, because you don't need to divide if it's 1. I mean, I like to put the 1 so I can see better what I'm doing, but dot the 1 plus your 4. And then negative 2.44 plus 4 is 1.56. Okay, again, I have a 1 there, so we don't really need to worry about that. Okay. Now the next one, I was not blocked, so I go to my rainbows. There's no point in doing x to the second because you don't have the second power, or h to the second, my bad. So you go 3 times 1x minus 3 times 4 is 12. Now you also have to add your 2 and then equal 20. So now I just dot my x right here and circle it. I have to undo both these at the same time. So I'm going to minus 2 from 20. But before I put 18 down, I also know I got to add 12. Okay. Okay, so I got 3 times x equals, you are going to need to divide because it's not a 1, it's a 3. And then to find what you're going to divide by 3, go 20 minus 2 plus 12. That's 30. Now I just divide and I have my answer. I don't need to do the square root because I don't have, it's x isn't to the second power. Okay, so that operation is not, it doesn't exist. Okay, now the problems you did yesterday. Okay, a missile is launched from a height of 50 feet, velocity of 400 feet per second. How long will it take the missile to land on the ground to a height of 0 feet? So again, my 2 units here are feet and seconds. Remember, your time is the x and feet is the y. So feet per second is 400. Okay, so again, a missile is going to go up, but gravity brings it back down. So you start at 50 feet, and then when you land, you're at 0 feet. Okay, so now I make my big box to write the equation, the gravity equation. Okay, so negative 16 goes here, the 400 goes on my x, and the 50 goes right here. And 0 feet takes the place of the y variable. Okay, now I'm ready to roll. I know that there's 2 answers. I know that to get those 2 answers, I have also got x to the first, so I'm going to need to do the set boxes strategy. So you're set, that's not an issue. So it's 3 terms, so it's GCF. And then my table, but my table I'm not going to use because I already know it's going to fail. Okay, negative x GCF. Well, the negative is there, so you are going to need the negative. Remember, once you know it's negative, get those listed. X you don't need because 50 doesn't have it. And then on my GCF calculator, I make the calculation 16,450. And I got 2. Okay, so I will be doing negative 2 out here. I'll divide all these by negative 2. So I get positive 8x to the second. 400 divided by negative 2 is negative 200, so minus 200x to the first. Positive 50 divided by negative 2 is negative 25. Okay. Now I'm not going to waste time with this. It fails because I knew that from the start. Okay. So I go to my quadratic formula. Remember, the ABC is here. So opposite of B plus or minus d square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a over 2a. Now remember, a is 8, b is negative 200, and c is negative 25. Okay, so the opposite of the b is positive 200. B itself would be negative 200. 4a is 8. and C is negative 25. Okay, and the A here is 8. Okay, so we got 200 plus minus, and then 2 times 8 is 16. Okay, then I plug the square root into the calculator. So I go second, x to the second power. Got to do second first. 2 parentheses from the get-go. We have negative 200 second power, and then subtract a 4 in parentheses next to a 8 in parentheses, next to a negative 25 in parentheses. And I got 201.99. Okay, and then I do the rest. I take 200 plus 201.99, hit equals before I divide by my 16. Okay, 25.12. It's not a bad looking answer. And then 200 minus 201.99 divided by 16, negative 0.12. Okay, so 25.12 is how many seconds I got. Okay, and then the last problem. It's a different kind of story problem, though. It involves shapes. Okay, a garden is 30 by 20 feet. A walkway needs to be built. After the walkway is built, the rectangular shape will have an area of 816 square feet. About how wide should our border be? You're solving for the x's here. So when they tell me area, I know I'm going to need to multiply the length by the width. Okay. So my length, I have 2x's plus a 30. And for the width, there I can see there are 2x's plus a 20. Now I need to multiply that out before I go down here. So I distribute the 2x. I just drew 2 rainbows. So I'll be timesing that by the 2x here and by the 20. That's done. Now I've also got 30, and that needs to be distributed to the same 2 things, 2x and 20. Okay, now remember, when you're multiplying x's, you need to make sure they all have powers. All these would take 1 powers. So 2 times 2 is 4, and on x, 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 times 20 is 40, and that would be x to the first, because that's the only x I have. 30 times 2 is 60, and then just x to the first. And then 30 times 20 is 600 with no x's at all. Okay, so now I simplify these by drawing the blanks out. So x second, I got 4. X 40 and 60 is 100. And then I have 600. Okay, now that's what we can drop down. 4x to the second plus 100x plus 600. Now that I've done all that crap, it's just like a normal equation. Okay, I know x has 2 answers. I've also got x to the first, so you got to do the set boxes, unfortunately. It's much quicker if you can do x squared equals x. But we were not set because we need to get rid of that 816. Okay, so I need to set this equation myself. Okay, x second, I got a 4. X, you got 100. These two go together. Now remember, this is where I need the 0, so that's where the one I minus. I don't minus the 600. Okay, this is what needs to be 0. So I minus 816. So I take 600 minus 816, and that's negative 216. And now I see my 3 terms. It's a GCF T, but I did not write fail, so you got to assume that the T table is probably going to be successful. Okay, so negative x GCF. X, nope. 4, 100, and 216. I got 4, okay. Okay, so 4 divided by 4 is 1, x to the second. 100 divided by 4 is plus 25x. And then negative 216 divided by 4 is negative 54. Okay. So now, if you're wondering where your ABC, because a lot of people don't, well, what do I do now? Well, it didn't say fail, so you're going to go to your table. But your ABC is now within the parentheses. It is not up here. So 1 times negative 54 is negative 54. And that's a minus. And I'm trying to get to 25, which is positive. Well, 1 and 54 can't do that. So divide 54 by 2, 27. 27 minus 2 is 25. So I got it. 25 plus, you got plus 27. Negative 54 means the signs are the opposite. Okay. Okay, now your A is 1x to the second. It makes it a lot easier because I know that I know right away what the GCFs are going to be when I go 1x minus 2 and 1x plus 27. I know they're both 1. Okay. So they'll both remain 1x minus 2 and 1x plus 27. Now do what we always talked about. You did it before you messed with this. You did have that 4 out there. So that is dropped down. But it's not an important factor because it's not 4x. It's just 4. Naked 4. F1, F2. And I've got 1x minus 2 equals 0. 1x plus 27 equals 0. Dot your x's. Plus your 2. That's 2. You don't need to divide by the 1. Okay. But I like to put the 1 there and dot it so I know exactly like what I need to do, what operation. But once I have it, 0 minus 27 is negative 27. So you got 2. You can divide by the 1 if you want, if it helps. Okay. But I'm saying it's not going to really affect the answer. Any other number but 1, you have no choice but to divide.